It's a pleasure to welcome you all to our I3 lecture, and also to meet Jorg Badura and have him show us images that are going to make us all feel like we're out of shape. All right? Yeah, no, seriously. I'm not taking my clothes off. Okay. Seriously. All right, Jorg was born and raised in the very north of Germany, near the North and the Baltic Seas. And in that area, it's very cold, blustery. We like to say it's very hardy. And that's where he had his first connection with nature. And in the 80s, in his art classes, he discovered photography and used photography for his first expression of creativity. And then in the early 90s, he came to the United States. He was here in the cities and sort of in a way started wanting to work with clients, but get them out of the cities back into nature. So he was at the very beginning of the idea of the adventure photographer and really making real, gritty, possibly dirty photographs, right? Well, not dirty, dirty, like muddy.
Yes.
Muddy.
More muddy than.
Okay. And what he's really working on now is really creating very authentic photographs, all right? Because as we know, we're a digital apartment. We can make people hang off of cliffs very easily. Jorg does it for real, all right? So if he asked to be your model, I'd be very careful, all right? But he's had tremendous national and international clients, including Northface, Nike, Reebok, Adidas, and his images have been featured in Self, Shape, New York Times Magazine, Condé Nast Traveler. So I look forward to an inspiring evening with Jorg Badura.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much. I wasn't expecting this full of a house here. This is quite intimidating to a certain degree. I've never done this before. This is going to be an interesting one. I think I should just move on right away into this presentation, where on one side I just want to first acknowledge, Catherine, very, very much thank you in your direction for this great introduction. I couldn't even do this myself like this. It's something which, you know, I talk through my images primarily. It's not one of those things which standing like this. I go into nature, I shoot the photograph a lot of times very silently, not a lot of things going on there. It's us with nature and a good team, and not a lot of talking a lot of times, because you want to really listen to nature. So before I get too carried away, let me give you an introduction of what I do photographically, and then the idea is to kind of see what I can bring out of my work for you as students of SVA, in the idea of where you're going to be in the future, perhaps aspiring to do or shoot the way I do it. What do you run into? What are the things you want to watch out for, or what you kind of want to not really pay too much attention to? So I'm going to start out right away. Here's sort of a little bit of an intro of my work. Let's start. I do portrait photography of real people, and that's part of it. So let this soak in for a moment, and I'll go more into talk later. So that was what my representatives love to present me with. That's the kind of work that actually appeals to some of the clients, and that's the kind of work that I get jobs with, which on one side allow me to be out in nature to begin with and bring images back for advertising that ties people with nature, and then on the other side allows me to get funding to do other projects. So for the next remainder of this whole talk, I'm going to go in depth about some of the projects we've done over the years, and we're, for example, some of the larger advertising projects require a lot of crew, a lot of people. We have a very, very intricate team. We search for the right components, from a dog whisperer to a rigger for climbing equipment to a dive operator who absolutely makes sure that underwater we are in the right spot. And we are bringing these people together in a pool in order to create what we have as layouts or as free open ideas and play and get what kind of develops in the moment. Since we are in nature, a lot of times it's very different than going into a studio. We don't have influence on the light. We have clouds moving in and out. We have movement of water. You know, we go on a location scout 3 weeks prior to a shoot, and we have beautiful beaches with beautiful water connection. We have enough sand. Everything is in the right spot, and we come back for the shoot itself, and all of a sudden the beach is gone. So there's a lot of little intricacies which we need to kind of watch in nature. We can tweak it a little bit at times. Photoshop and the digital media has helped advertising in that area quite tremendously. Unfortunately, it also creates a world that is not necessarily real. We kind of getting a little bit disconnected of what we sort of perceive nature to be. I'm trying to still work in one shot, in camera, if I can. As you've seen, the one shot where all the runners are, you know, we've played with the concept of the agency, and all these characters were singly photographed, and we composed them together into one shot with a little bit of fading, a lot of technical work. I'm trying to still avoid this if I can, because it has a truer message for me personally, and I do believe, and perhaps you can give me some feedback of what you're connecting with and what you're not connecting with.
Are you referring to the image where you have a group of runners running across
Yes.
the bridge and the
Yes.
pack is in a ghost?
Exactly. Exactly. I can show you this one more time. This is an image which is clearly composed. You know, what you do is here you take a backdrop, a background which you shoot. Partially you shoot the sky separately if you don't have the right sky. Sometimes even the surface, in order to get the right surface out of the shot. Everything gets pieced together, and then once you determine that the background is the way you want it, then you bring the people in. And it's super essential that you work out of the same angle of perspective. If you start getting a little bit too high in your view on a person, it will never look fitting into the actual background. Now, there are things in order to enhance it. You can play around with it a little bit, but it's in order to make it real and make it something that is actually for us somewhat authentic to look at, you have to follow certain rules. And we're trying to stick to that. You know, there are some directions which are going with very cartoony kind of looks, and that works. You can enhance nature, or in any photograph or any illustration, by making it a little distorted, but it's not necessarily what we are used to with our eye. It might be more intense, might be more attractive for some parts, but I'm trying to stick to a fairly natural look. Let me go forward. This campaign was in the south of New Zealand, on the southern island, And we went actually with a bunch of race car drivers to actually kind of bring them, because they were sponsored by this company, and they ended up being the people which were in the photographs. And for this photograph, for example, in order to access it, you see there's a lake underneath, and we have this tower. There's nothing retouched on this image. There's nothing enhanced, there's nothing altered. This is all in one piece. Where am I? I'll show you in a minute. We are flying up onto this ridge, which from here it actually goes higher up. You can't fly to the top. There's no landing spot for a helicopter. They did do helicopter drops for the rigging equipment. So what we do is, in order to get the right perspective, where people, imagine this podium, the people are standing on top of this, what you don't want is you don't want these guys to disappear in the background when you're too high. And you don't want them to stick up too high in the sky, because usually you have some kind of a format that actually has to fit onto a billboard or onto a magazine page. And if you're bringing the tower too high, which would have been the natural thing because we were quite down below, as you can tell, if we're down here on the bottom of the ladders, you don't get that tower to come in the right perspective with the horizon, with these guys standing in the shot and connect with the lake down in the bottom. So that was quite an intricate production. We brought all these rigs up there. And another shot is, you see that guy in the top right corner? He's sitting on this ledge. We secured him with harnesses and everything so he wouldn't fall off, potentially, because the drop is quite severe. That's about an easy 2,000 feet. You're not coming back from there. So even when you're dangling, it's not a very comfortable thing to do. So we have very, very, very strong security regulations, and we have very, very knowledgeable people to pull this together. And I have a team of assistants which I personally test in order to actually do the job with me, because they have to be free of vertigo. Doesn't help. Go ahead.
It doesn't pertain to photography, but what type of insurance do you have to have?
That's the trick. That's the trick. America has very, very strong liability insurance, laws, and you could not do this kind of production here in America unless you have amazing clients that are willing to pay for amazing liability insurance. In New Zealand and other parts of the world, liability is handled differently. You're more self-liable. If something goes wrong here, you can always sue somebody here in America. That doesn't work in other countries. I was 5 years prior to this shoot. I was in the same place. We were shooting in a waterfall, and I swung across a waterfall on a rope in order to get a certain angle of a kayak coming over the waterfall. I got stuck with my feet in the waterfall and swung and hit my head into the wall. Had a camera in my right hand, got unconscious, and sunk together like this. I woke back up, and I had a rock in my head, and I took it out, and it started bleeding a little bit. I took the shot, and then I got pulled up by this friend of ours, and we hiked back out for an hour. I drove to the hospital, and they put some stitches on it. They didn't charge me. I went back to the hotel, and the next morning we were up and running again. It wasn't a severe blow. It wasn't something. It wasn't that big of a deal. It's just to show that you can go in some different parts of the world, just literally to the hospital, and you get stitched up and you're fine, and you're going home again. You don't necessarily have to present a credit card. This is the setup from the other side, from where the guy was sitting. We extended the platform out in order to actually have him in a certain perspective with the lake and the expansion of the lake. This is another shot which we created a certain kind of a way so these guys could literally drive right up to me and create this kind of perspective of it. So you sit completely covered in rain gear. That's what we used back then. Sometimes we use a wetsuit or something like this, or a dry suit. Depends on the temperature and the amount of water. Rain gear was plenty with waders. You see my assistant here with a pair of waders on. This shoot was fantastic because this image, we actually had to build a tent. We had to take a tent in order to change our cameras, the film back then, which this was shot on film, because there were so many mosquitoes in the air that if you open up the camera, you change the lens, you might have a mosquito right inside your camera body. So you go into a tent, you do the whole thing, and you bring it back out. That assistant was sweating because it was fairly hot those days out there. Next shoot is, this is Slim Jim. He is actually a record holder with his amazing Kawasaki. It's a modified Kawasaki. I did a project for a camera manufacturer who wanted to first start out with sort of, let's do something with dirt bikes and stuff like this. And it was in the age where the cameras were going digital. And I said, let's perhaps try something a little bit more futuristic, a little bit more technology driven. So we sourced a bike out of the Bonneville Salt Flat racing out in, it's called Idaho, yes, Salt Lake. There's Bonneville, it's directly on the border towards what is that, the other state, Nevada? Utah, yeah, probably Utah. Thank you. And we're sort of looked for a very particular bike, we found it, and we pulled a production together in order to make a shot that actually displays a certain amount of speed and a certain amount of energy alongside with it. So here's the beginning part. He's taking off. These machines are run in such a way that they're almost getting pushed. They're in first gear at about 60, 70 miles an hour. And then they get up to 200 and something miles an hour. So we followed him first with a car, and we created actually a rig in order to do that. I'll show that to you later. This was early in the morning. As you can tell, the sun had just risen, and we did our first runs. And everything was cool and everything was fine until all of a sudden he stopped. And we're going, what's going on? What's going on? Couldn't first figure it out. We tried all sorts of different things, and that's when you kind of get involved. At that point, I was like, let's get the shot. I don't want to lose the light. So I got personally into this. It was not only the caking of the salt that actually caused the electricity to fail. There were certain connections, but the motorcycle was simply out of gas. So we ended up taking the fastest vehicle that we had on set, which was a Ford Mustang, and we sent one of the PAs out to get gasoline. And once they came back, or once he came back, we were back up and running and taking several different angles while speeding over the lake. The amount of salt you can tell here on the flash that flies when you're just sort of driving and when you're close to the camera. The camera was basically caked in parts with salt, and we ended up having to wipe the lens every once in a while, and that's where these come in very handy. One little thing that I can recommend to all of you. I love all these, fiber, non-organic kind of lens cleaners, but a regular shimmy for a car works brilliantly because you can wash it and you can reuse it. It's recyclable, and it does actually absorb moisture as well. So from that point of view, one of the best things to actually remove almost anything from your lens without scratching it, unless you have sand on it or something like this. You have to be a little careful. But it works amazing with moisture and those kind of things. This is the view from the helicopter, because we had the idea to shoot also, and that was meant to be happening early in the morning from the top with the lines of the air flying off of the motorcycle with the speed. Unfortunately, we ran out of gas and we couldn't do that shot. So you might sometimes have really amazing ideas, but you get to the location and something goes wrong and you just don't get to do it. So that's unfortunately reality, even with big productions. So you then come up with a different idea, or you just kind of do what you can do at that point. We try to chase the motorcycle out of the air in order to get some different perspectives anyhow. And that looks like this then. Communication with the helicopter pilot is very, very important, because when you're at 30 feet or some, I don't know, perhaps 20 feet off the ground with a helicopter, you have to have helicopter pilots which are absolutely knowledgeable about what they're doing. And they are listening, and you give them directions that there's nothing that could go wrong. Here is the Mustang, which films one angle, and I am shooting the motorcycle from the side, and we're then chasing it down and getting shots like this, where we are literally, I have there, we couldn't pull it out now, but there's a shot where the skid of the helicopter is literally sort of right above here. Sort of you get the feeling. And the man with his motorcycle was amazing. He had so much fun, and he was so dedicated that he actually, at the end of the day, ran it through very shallow water in order to create these images, which are very, very unique. The story goes that it took him a couple days, 4 days, to get all that salt out of the machine. He had to take it completely apart, soak it in water, rinse it a couple times to not cause severe damage. This is the image that actually in the end got chosen for the advertisement. And let's try this out. This is a little video that we got at the same time. So that was that project. It was fun.
So I'm going to ask, so in that case, the client was Nikon?
That was Nikon. That
And
was
so
Nikon. Yeah.
Who came up with the concept?
The concept was, like I said earlier, it was the idea to potentially use dirt bikes in a, sort of regular motocross environment. And we had a discussion with the art director, and we sort of played it through. And I said, why don't we do something which is a little bit more futuristic towards it was the introduction of these cameras. Yeah. Back then, and I don't know if you were able to recognize, but there was no highlight details in these files. Those were 5 megapixel SLRs that were very expensive back then, and they didn't really do what we were hoping them to do, but it evolved. And what do we have now? We have, for 35 millimeter, we have somewhere in the 20s now, the megapixel size. So it really evolved. Did I ever use them in Alta? Did I use them in Alta? No. Just kidding. Oh, okay. No. They wouldn't allow. No, they had very tight restrictions there, and it was probably a good idea too, because those cameras were very, very advanced at the time, and working very, very well. So, next project. I got invited to do a project in the south of Chile, which is southern Patagonia. There's a beautiful national park which turned into my favorite national park in the world. It's called Torres del Paine. And different glaciers break off different ice formations which become unbelievably beautiful. It's a very, back then, it started to become it started getting everybody's attention, but it wasn't really on everybody's 100% radar like it is now. I don't know if you're aware of that, but Chasing Ice, which is a very important movie, had actually gotten an Oscar. We were back there around, and we looked at it, and we didn't really understand 100%. We had heard about it, but we had no reference. There was no before or after. It was like, hey, you see this? There's not a lot of places where people actually have put markers and say, okay, here is the glacier 100 years ago, and here is where the glacier is now. The only place I know is if you ever get up to St. Moritz in Switzerland, there's actually a valley where you have markers with different times of the last over the last 110 years, where you can actually see how the glacier has receded. And they're kind of sad little markers. But on the other side, that's where it's heading at the moment. It is up to us on how to stop this. So perhaps you get inspired to incorporate into your photography with your clients, future clients, projects, whatever you do, a little bit of nature and make other people aware of it. That's part of my mission in different ways. Back here, we went out to actually explore the glacier a little bit in different ways. And this is just melting water and air creating these tunnels, which are absolutely amazing landscapes. And we basically go exploring different areas. And what I can tell you here is don't underestimate nature ever. It's one of those things, when you get close to icebergs, when you work with this kind of environment, be absolutely cautious. Even in a forest, you can get hit by a falling branch, by a limb or by an entire tree. Always be aware in nature. You can be out in the most beautiful sunshine in a rocky area and rocks can come down and seriously cause a danger to you. These icebergs, they're in constant motion. Certain parts will break off, they readjust. And what you see above water is, as we probably all know, only 1 part of 10 that is actually visible, or 9. It's really depending on the size and the amount of oxygen inside of an iceberg. So when you do this kind of stuff, it gets really, really tricky because we are basically in between 2 glacier walls and you become very silent and you become very at awe and very respectful to nature. And that's kind of what I try to display with this image. One of the companies that picked that up back then really understood what this was all about. They made a nice little advertising. This gap can tell you how close the glacier wall is from collapsing. It's the amount of distance from where it was at the water level to the water level. And the higher it gets, the more tension is building up, and the earlier it's going to crack. So we're pretty close to an area there, but we made it out of there for bringing back these images in a healthy and alive way. So I'm very happy for it. I am actually in a motorized boat, which we used in order to get into the spot, and I had a higher elevation in order to actually get this perspective. Sometimes we actually take a Zodiac and we tie a ladder inside of the Zodiac, and we're standing on a ladder in order to get a higher angle. You work with all different things, because some areas you can simply not bring larger boats into. A larger boat here with a bigger engine would have potentially caused too much vibration, and it would have been not possible. Nobody would have really wanted to do that because the risk is too high. So we kind of work around. We listen. It's very important to listen to nature. If one of us on the crew, and we work with very, very, very knowledgeable local guides that are absolutely 100% in touch with the environment there, and if one of the guys would have said like, no, I don't feel right about this, we just pull back. One voice is enough. There's never a discussion. If one person does not like it, if one person doesn't feel in the right spot, you pull back out. The reward is glacier water. I all urge you to try it. There's nothing better. It's full of energy, ancient, ancient energy, and it will recharge your body in a way that is just beautiful. So at the end of the shoot, we're all jumping and having a good time. Important part for you guys for the future is when you do these kind of projects and you get to go into an area which is unique, or you have an amazing idea and you want to do something. One client wants to do it but doesn't necessarily have the budget. What do? You try to get another client. So what I did is I called up a magazine which I work with, which was a fashion magazine, and we ended up discussing a little back and forth, and they said, okay, why not? We'll send you a bag of clothes and do a story for us. So we ended up working a beautiful, beautiful fashion story out in this national park with an amazing model. Another part which you might want to really look into is casting. When you go and do something, you want to find the right person. You don't ever want to rely on your magazine or your editors or your clients to absolutely tell you, no, no, this is the right person. You'll do a great job. It's a lot of times really your personal connection with the actual talent, with the actual environment. Whatever it is, check it out yourself and make sure you are comfortable with it before you're finding yourself in an amazing spot. And in this case, for example, you know, it could have been the girl shivering and saying, I want to go home now, I'm scared, I don't want to do this. This is a very unusual thing. This is not something you can put people into in a very comfortable way usually. But if somebody just says, hey, we'll work it out, and I'm not afraid of the cold, you do it. So, another project, we worked air tracking, which is light flying devices, which are amazing, which are one way to travel. The gentleman who has this whole entire idea and operation is a very wealthy man, and he has a bunch of friends. They fly around in New Mexico, Utah area and do amazing, amazing trips. He believes it's the future, which could very, very well be, where we're going to have gas stations all over the country where you can fly from one gas station to the next gas station. The same way automobiles started making this continent and the rest of the world smaller and smaller and smaller. You can see that little camera up there on the top right on the wing. We mounted that camera into there for me to get very unique angles. And I had a remote release. And before we took off, it was early in the morning, we put everything together, we put it all in there, and then we flew for about 3 hours. And we had unbelievable footage. I mean, the places, the height we had partially to the ground, the perspective was amazing. And we arrived back at the actual next station where we were going to, oh, this is the gentleman, actually. He is, yeah, he's very happy and very, very excited. He's, by the way, he was back then, he was in his 60s, and he would fly 80 feet or 60 feet off the ground at 65 miles an hour. You make one mistake, or you have a certain amount of turbulences, it gets very iffy. So we're arriving back in at his station, and we're looking into the wing, checking out the camera, and it turns out there was no film in there. What do you do? You know, it's one of you. You know, it's something you can't prevent yourself from. So you might as well accept it. As a photographer, there will be one thing that goes wrong that will not allow you to get your images. And if it's as simple as getting a roll of film not into the camera at the right time and not recognizing it, that's one of those things that happens. You can blame it on different people on the crew. You can blame it on yourself. You can beat yourself up. But there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. And if you don't have a client that is going to be crucially relying on those images, then just kind of walk over it. It is politically correct and sometimes very, very important for the budget and for you to potentially be asked to reshoot things if you have a client that is really paying for you to get for certain shots. So if you might want to disclose it, but you want to do it in a very gentle way, and you want to see that you kind of get that going. We're all human beings, we make mistakes. My assistants make mistakes. Back in the film age as well as now in the digital age. I've had CF cards disappear, or, you know, the data not being able to be found afterwards anymore. But that kind of thing happens. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just one of those things that happens. Because sometimes we have to go so fast and we don't get to really check and control. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. You know, we're all expecting things to happen so much faster. Meantime, it's a beautiful environment and it's something very unique. Be prepared to step into a different place when you are up that high in the air and they'll ask you to actually fly yourself for a moment. So there are some perks when you do this kind of job. It's sometimes you get to do something very different and it excites me then too. I was asked by a very famous magazine here in New York back in the days to go and do something with snowboarding. And you know, snowboarding with a helicopter is pretty awesome. You know, you just get up on the hill. It's like an automatic chairlift. You just go, whoop, up, get out of the helicopter, and then you just ride down the mountain. And then you jump in the helicopter again, and you let the helicopter take off, and you walk over to the side and go, oh yeah, why not we take this route? Boom, and you're flying back down the mountain. And it's always the first tracks. Now, I did this in a way that I would actually get some really cool images while I'm riding, actually. And it's unpreventable. For example, in this shot, I was perfectly positioned in the wall in this very steep environment. But when I turned a little bit too much on the board which I was on, just slipped a little bit, and I started tumbling just for 2 rolls with my camera. It had the result that the camera, which actually was cold and adjusted, was a little bit warmer than the snow. And it actually was caked in snow. The snow was packed onto it. And all these cameras nowadays are sealed. They're actually amazing. But what is sometimes not sealed is the window which you actually need to look through. They seal everything, but they forget about this little window. At least that's what fogged up in my camera, because on the first run, when I was after this, I wiped it out, everything was fine, and it's helping that you just have one of these with you. It's a simple towel, fits in every pocket, it's great for the rain.
Find it in every hotel room.
Exactly, very easy. You've done this before. It's one of those things that is inevitable. You need something which cleans the camera somehow. It ended up that the actual pressure change from going fast down the mountain, jumping in the helicopter, and flying back up, sucked moisture that was remaining around the outside of the rim into the actual window of the back. And from then on, one of my cameras was fogged. What do? You gauge. You just don't see anything anymore, and you still take shots. So you continue. Now this I shot with the other camera, which I still have, which had a good thing in it. But when you work with 2 lenses, and you work with 2 cameras, you sometimes then end up really just looking through the camera from far. You kind of gauge it, and you actually take advantage of the autofocus, place it, and you shoot still some amazing images. This is actually one of those which I just almost shot blindly, where when you snowboard and you're actually shooting at the same time, I don't know if any of you guys are snowboarding, but skiing is very different than snowboarding. Your balance is very different, and as soon as you rotate a little bit, you actually turn. So when you're putting your weight over to the side and you actually want to get a shot over this way, you're actually turning. So you kind of have to counterbalance that the whole time, and it gets very exciting at times, which when balancing out the shot can be a little bit challenging. But train it, try it out, keep yourself physically fit when you want to do this kind of stuff, and you will just have a blast. It's really, really fun. I've done a lot of action shooting, and I've had a client that came up to us via my rep and said, how about you shooting some dogs? And I said, oh, I've never done that before. That's very challenging. So we did portraits in the studio, and we actually went ahead, and it's amazing how you end up starting to talk to dogs. It's really, I shot 23 different dog breeds. It was a logistically challenging production, because you have to have an environment where the dogs are 100% in a comfortable situation. Otherwise, they'll all run around with their tail in between their legs, and they're just really scared. And they will have their ears going like this, and they look kind of funny. to kind of really open up, you have to be a very confident dog, and somebody has to respect you too. So, and we got that going. We went outside, and these are some of the ads, which, you know, are kind of fun. But the personality of these dogs is only coming out if you're really paying attention to them and you play with them. We did some fun shots. We couldn't resist. But the idea is that when you work with dogs, believe it or not, some of these dogs I would literally talk to and they would respond. I don't know if you guys are, how many of you guys are dog owners? Oh, wow. There we go. You know that probably. I mean, the dog knows what you're up to and, you know, listens to you and moves around. So you know, the dog whisperer which we had was fantastic because he set it up in such a way that whenever we were working with the dog, we had full concentration and relation with the dog. He would help motivate the dogs, but also secure the dogs sometimes from their own owners. We've had dogs that came in and they were just scared. And I have a whole set of images which were just sort of like, there's a habit between a dog owner and their dog, and there's a respect, and they're trained to behave a certain way. And what we sometimes do when we do these kind of projects, we try to see on how the dog owners are responding with their animals in order to either go in the good direction with what they're doing or to help potentially some misunderstandings in order to kind of have the dog come out with their personality, because it's amazing. When they do come out with their personality, it's a lot of fun. Back in the glacier areas, I was asked to do a project for an eyewear company. This one, I actually got to kayak, and I was basically able to become part of the shot because they asked me to sort of endorse their eyewear, and we shot these amazing landscapes. And in all different areas, where, for example, this area, we hiked into a plateau which is absolutely barren in the Atacama Desert. This is all like shingle-looking kind of size stones, which nature just organized like this. And we're at 14,000 feet. When you do that for a day, you get very lightheaded after a while. Our crew, we were very small. We were only 4 people fitting into a Land Rover for this entire shoot. And there are situations which, you know, we'll all have different responses to it. Some of us get severe headaches. Some get really sick. Or if you follow the guides, kind of advises, when you go from a certain level of altitude to, let's say, 4 or 5 or 10,000 feet higher, just don't eat and drink before, an hour before, or while you're going up. So if you ever get back in the plane and you wonder why your tummy is kind of funky, try out not eating before you get on the plane. Just try it out. Or when you go on skiing and you're having breakfast, wait about an hour before you get on the ski lift. Because it's one of those things, when you get higher, air expands and it gets very uncomfortable at times. And it's one of those things that doesn't work well when you're on a production like this and you really have to get stuff done. So everybody is on the same page. We are able to do tremendous tasks. We found a shopping bag up there. And I don't know if you recognize it, but this is the highland of this unbelievable plateau. And it's nature which is just mind-boggling. These are all salt lakes. You find, you know, I wish we would have had the time to put these larger images in. We didn't have the time to finish it off. But this is just this amazing landscape. There's this tiny little Land Rover in there, which is part of the imagery. And when you come back down, you actually get an oxygen rush because you've been lightheaded all day and you go in 5,000 feet down, 10,000 feet down, all of a sudden you get in all this oxygen, you feel like high and you feel like Superman. Because all your red blood cells all of a sudden just pumped and you just go, wow, this is cool. And you come up with completely different ideas. Which, by the way, is one of those things, whenever you have an idea, whenever you think you want to take a photograph, take that photograph. Don't let somebody tell you, oh, we got to go, we got to go, we got to go. Come up with something. You know? I do sometimes when we're on the way to location or something like this and I see something, guys, I got to stop, I got to go pee. Just to get out of the car and take a shot. Because I want that photograph. It's very difficult sometimes, but believe in your own inner voice. When you see something, shoot it. Don't let an idea go by, because you'll turn around and you're going to go by and go, like, I should have done this. I should have, yes, I should have. And those kind of things, sometimes they stick with you for a long time. I've not reacted the way I'm saying because of different things. And I look at that little catalog of images which I miss sometimes, and I go, I should have done that shot. So do these shots. And when you are taking the moment, which is very spontaneous sometimes, just trust your judgment. We shot this shot with a remote release camera. You click the button and it takes 10 seconds, and I ran to the bonnet of the camera and everybody else was on there, and clunk, we got that shot. Do it. Just place it, make a photograph that actually gets your passion going. And that's for commercial situations. If you're in a commercial situation with a client who says, we got to do this, 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 and you are obeying and you're doing everything right, sometimes try to go an extra step to the left or to the right and do something that is not necessarily what they're expecting. You don't necessarily need to tell everybody, but try to kind of get yourself the space to do it. Because if you don't, you just get home with what they wanted. And a lot of times, it's not necessarily your perfect interpretation of the shot. You get bogged down by a crew of 2 art directors and a creative director and an account executive, and then there is the producer from the agency, and all of a sudden you've got 6 people all having an opinion, and then 3 clients which have to be obeyed to, and everybody wants it in a certain way. And there's a layout, and can we do this, and can we do this? And there's a lot of discussion. And before you actually get the shot, you're so drained and so mentally confused that it's really valuable if you find an inner spot where you can preserve that one voice which you created for your own photography, and go out there and do it. And sometimes it's better not to let the client know, because it just causes too much discussion. Personal projects, very important. I wanted to go and shoot the New York Marathon for a long time. And I talked my representative into getting me a pass via a magazine which I work with to get in there to be close to the finish line. When you get this kind of pass, it's great, because the people that go, oh, well, you come with this in this magazine. Yes, yes, cool. Okay, great, okay. And then we got to view the area on the day before, and we actually ended up getting close to the finish line. We talked about how we wanted to do this project, and they said, great. When we arrived, nothing was like this. We were put in a corral. We were stuck in a box where everybody from the press goes, and you can only shoot with a long lens, and you don't get close to those people. So Dawn, my assistant, and I, we sort of created this whole thing, and I figured out, like, okay, I've got my still photography and I've got a video. And back then, you know, the first real usable videos, the 5D Mark II came up, and there was a lot of like energy and hype around that thing, and I was like, what can you do with this thing? Well, let's rig it up and let's get it going, and let's see. And so I was anxious to get something going, but we were stuck in this corral. So you don't want to burn the people that actually give you the possibility to get in there, because if you're making a mistake, that magazine is going to get a phone call, and it's like, hey, what happened with that photographer? That guy really messed up the whole entire event. And it's not necessary that you really did, but there's always somebody who wants to blame somebody. So you might get the heat if you don't behave properly. So what we did is we got stuck in there, and I got very anxious after a while. It's like, okay, you know what? Now it's busy enough. And we just basically got into the flood of all these runners that come through the finish line. If you've ever seen it, it's an amazing event. It is something that is quite heartwarming when you see the people that actually, a lot of these people run just simply for a good cause. They raise money for amazing events and for very, very important nonprofits or causes. It's one of those things, and some people just run for themselves and just want to make it to the finish line. And everybody has their own motivation. But when you see a pool of people, all like-minded, coming through, it is quite amazing. And what I did is I just basically just went into the mix where nobody could see me. So I ended up filming, and Don was behind me with a pole, with the sound, and he would capture exactly what I did, and we got an amazing amount of sound and amazing images. And what we did is we actually cut a video out of that, which I'd like to share with you.
Pretty much every step of the way for 26 miles, you got people cheering you on. They're great. It's awesome. There's nothing like it. This is my marathon. It's more I want to run every single year.
The atmosphere is fantastic. Ah, it's just fantastic.
I keep saying never again, man. I keep doing that. We're emotional after Bardura Bridge, dropping down to Manhattan.
There is nothing like New York.
Okay. Quickly, we work in the water. Again, casting is important. We are, I don't know if you can tell, but everything underwater is 30% larger than above the water. It's one of those things which you don't ever want to forget when you're actually trying to take a shot underwater. Everything is magnified. One of those things above and below water is very tricky. There are certain filters which you can use in order to kind of get it into a certain spot, but it's not ever really working. So we work with very knowledgeable people in order to get very good shots, and the models, again, get tested. Casting is essential for those kind of things again, because not a lot of girls would really put up with getting into a pool all day and freeze potentially. So we do this at certain times of the year when the water is very warm, the pools get heated, and I am usually bringing a wetsuit, unless it gets really warm. And I get out of it too. And we create images like this in the end. We work on projects which which sometimes get into areas which kind of allow ourselves to look at things a little bit differently. There's, with all the nature I get to see, we have access to some of the areas, and this is in Hawaii, for example. This is one of the first abandoned wind farms. And when you drive by this, you wonder what's going to happen one day when they all go, wind farms are cool, but this has been sitting there for quite some time, and it's too expensive to remove them. They basically build a site with another new wind farm with newer models just down the street from there. And the state doesn't have the money, and the investor group that used to put this into place doesn't have the money to maintain it anymore, and it's just nobody can break it down. And I was on a commercial project. I drove by the site twice, and after the shoot I decided that's when I have to go and shoot this, because I need to take these images. I need to take these photographs, because that's just not right. I should be able to bring those down. So if you ever have a project that you are feeling like you want to share, do it. Again, I can only emphasize the point. And if the client doesn't necessarily, the timing of your shoot doesn't allow it, do it at night. All these images are shot at night. I don't know if you recognize the stars. This is all long exposure. It looks almost like daytime, but it isn't. It's all at night. So again, I'm in the middle of a commercial production. I have a very tight schedule. Everything is really, 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 really organized, and I really don't have the time. But I could not resist.
This is where we are. Well, I'm glad we got a 16-gig card in there. Did you fall in? Sweep them right up. All right. We go up. And out of the case.
And some other parts we get to visit very, very different places, and we make a document of it.
So this is 400 years old. They dig it from the top.
That big square is the courtyard, the beating heart of the house.
When we're walking in through this wall, in this gateway here, we'll see different rooms all the way to this entrance here. And this is
prophylactic science that will protect the house and its inhabitants from the evil eye. Written in Arab letters, Allah, God, and Muhammad, the Prophet of God, and the hand of Fatima.
in the summertime, it must be so boiling hot that when you were going into these caverns, it's just a relief. You come in here, it's a completely different temperature. It's really warm in here.
So the Berber way of doing this is honey, then olive oil.
Yep. If you do get the chance to do multimedia stuff, jump at it because it's fun. It gives you a completely different outlet. I can only encourage you. Photography will always be around. It is always important. But there is a different possibility of telling a story with video. And it is sort of tying together. If we had more time, I would show you more time lapses, which we do for different clients, where we actually mount cameras in certain spots and we do remote triggering. We do a lot of different things, but it's always interesting on how people get captivated by moving imagery. And it helps to kind of play with that a little bit for, you know, your own growth and for potentially the commercial application. I think we're gonna let this go out a little bit. I'm not quite sure how to. If you guys have any questions, please.
Wait. We need to have you use the mic for the video. So you want to just have it playing? Marco? Dave, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, slideshow
Okay,
would be
play,
good.
everybody.
When you're doing your shots, and they're all different, do you go into any special type of training and choreographing prior to going to the set? I mean, because there are different skill sets for each shot, snowboarding, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. I try to maintain a certain amount of physical balance where there are some projects which I especially prepare myself for, and then there's other projects which I sort of just can jump into. I try to stay in a certain way. Whoops, that's the wrong button. Oh, we'll just let it go. That's a good idea. Okay, here we go. There is a very important part is don't ever underestimate the physical aspect of a production. There's been projects where I've been training for it, and then yes, when we go in with a big production and everybody helps you, it's one thing. But when you're going by yourself and you're doing a reportage project or something like this, and you're schlepping all your own gear, you really got to know what you're able to schlep and still take pictures. Test it out, play around with it, and don't necessarily just kind of jump into it and hope for the best. Because nature will throw little curveballs at you, and it will ask you to get a little bit. Oh, this is like while we're training with a pole. That's a funny story. The idea is, yes, do a good preparation, always. That's mentally and physically when you're going into these kind of environments. Absolutely, I would recommend that. Even when you go outside New York, you go upstate, you do some climbing stuff up at the Gungs, or you do surfing stuff in Lido Beach, wherever you go, you don't want to underestimate it. Water has its own power, wind, snow. The elements can be very challenging. But if you're in good gear, I train simply by riding the bike in the city under any condition. I don't have it with me today, sunny day out there, but usually I travel with a small pack this size, which is a rain jacket and a pair of rain pants, which then I just jump on the bicycle and I keep my legs fit and I keep my senses aware by dodging the traffic in New York City. So all that is sort of helping me stay ready for a different kind of production again. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. I have, you've been to some very extreme locations, carrying a rather big footprint with you. How do you feel the appearance of new, smaller cameras, particularly from the GoPro family, are helping or like leveling the field for this type of adventure work, or if you use them, if they help to your workflow, or have you considered using them since they are so disposable?
Any camera, as long as you take a shot, is going to be recording an image that you can do something with. It's no matter how big or the quality of a camera. Don't ever get discouraged by saying, oh, I don't have a good enough camera. I started out with very simple cameras. There's always the aspiring idea of shooting the highest megapixel or the best resolution, or the best lenses. I truly believe in, if you use any kind of camera, it's the vision which you transfer through that element of, or that vehicle of a camera. Now GoPro, I think, is fantastic. It delivers an amazing possibility due to its size. It is limited because of its lens, so you can only do certain things with it. You can't necessarily get something that is a little zoomed in. You can crop into the shot, but then your resolution falls because the sensor of that camera is only a certain size. But for very interesting, powerful action stuff, fantastic. Fantastic vehicle. We mount these things onto snowboards, onto bicycles, onto surfboards. You can handhold them while you're, in the tube. Like a photographer colleague of mine does self-portraits, shooting that out in Malibu, and it's fantastic. So you can do it in all different ways. I believe it's not the camera that makes the photographer. It's your eye, it's your vision. Answer your question?
Any other questions? Over here, Mark, over here.
What do you want from a creative director to help you maximize your performance?
Good question. Clear communication. I think that helps. It's one of those things that if the art director is passionate about what he wants, what he brings across, then I can read that passion and I can adapt that into my approach. And if we can both go and join, then it's fantastic collaboration. I've worked with many different art directors, creative directors, photo editors, you name it, all different kinds of creative people that come in order to direct me, clients directly, partially. And it does help a little bit to have a photographic understanding for an art director, because then it's not necessarily, oh, I thought that was going to be possible doing it like this. The educational process for some art directors on set is sometimes very time-consuming. And the trust of a photographer or a client or an art director into the photographer is almost essential if you want to save time. It's really one of those things where we get stuck a lot of times where, I've got art directors on set, they shoot images with their little point and shoots, and they look cool. Mm-hmm. They have, the pre-formatted JPEG look, and they have a curve on it, and they look amazing. The sky is super blue, and the colors are super pumping, and everything is cool, and it's wide angle. And it's like, yeah, I can do that shot. But to get my raw format of a high-resolution shot, which is ultimately reproducible for the size of billboard or a magazine article with the actual quality they're expecting, to look the same way, it doesn't necessarily come out of the camera like this. So you have to be on set, take a little moment, work with it. To wrap it up, I think it's an openness towards to what I have to bring to the table, and a mutual sort of willingness to collaborate. That's, to me, essential to be out there. And the times when I've been out there and telling art directors to please take a bottle of water with you when you leave in the morning and to have a power bar with you. That first thing which I showed you, where we're up on that cliff, where we're like in this thing, there was on the second production, we had a situation where we got stuck for 9 days not accessing one location. We were able to do other shots in the meantime, but we couldn't access that location. We had a scout sitting on the bottom of Milford Sound, which is a very famous tourist location up down the southern island of New Zealand. And he was basically looking for the weather every day. And when we got the window to have the weather, we flew in and we checked it and we got the shot. When we went the days prior to actually scout it, the helicopter pilot said, listen guys, you're going to be out and you're going to be in. There's no way to park for the helicopter, so we had to kind of jump off the skid while it's halfway landed. We jump off, we're on this ridge, and we are stuck on the ridge because all of a sudden the clouds move in. The helicopter could not come back. And we're stuck on this ridge, and it starts to rain. And I'm going, everybody puts their rain gear on. We're all comfortable. It's like, okay, let's wait this out. And I'm talking with the art director saying like, okay, so put your rain jacket on before you're wet. Because once you're wet, it's really uncomfortable. Rain gear? It was sunny when we left. Yes. And then we all sort of hung out, and we all had our bottle of water, and I asked if he had it, and she's like, oh no, I left that, and I didn't have the power bar either. So we basically, up there on this ridge, there's no way you hike out of that area. We would have been potentially stuck up there for a day, for a couple hours, or for 2 days. You don't know this kind of stuff. And what I'm asking is, when we pull a team together, is listen to the professionals on set, go with the knowledge that we have. So when you're going up the hill and you're coming back down the hill, you don't necessarily blow out your knees. Let us know how physically fit you are, because it's one of the responsibilities of the production then to carry you around and be able to see the spots which we're actually shooting in. Oh, that's a funny thing which we shot, yeah.
I want to thank you very much.
Thank
you. It was inspiring. I want to get in shape.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.